Good morning and welcome to Tip Off. We're a little clunky today. If you have missed the story, I decided to slip and fall early in preseason. Well, I just look awful on this. I got to do something about this. Uh, I just decided to slip and fall early in preseason and ended up dropping my laptop. So I'm on a 2-year-old laptop right now, which, it's not the end of the world, but it's pretty clunky, and I have none of my tip-off production in it and any of that kind of stuff. So that means that we're kind of doing it just old school. There's no production. There's no highlights. It's very little production anyway. There's no drum roll. I'm looking at the camera right now and realizing that it somehow is doing something to me that's blotching. Hey, I'm as vain as the next guy. We all know this. And this makes me look awful. I better off turn off the lights and do this one in the dark. It is still dark here in the Pacific Northwest. It's absolutely gorgeous out. It's too bad I should have delayed this a little bit so you could get the view out of my office, out of my hotel room. It's just terrific. Neat hotel we stay in, right on the river, and it is really beautiful. So we'll do our regular little features, answer your questions. There you can get the view and a reflection of me in the mirror. Well, we'll go with that for you. As the morning rises. How's that? That's kind of a cool idea for the video today. We'll let you guys have as the sun sets. It doesn't look that good, though, does it? Just, the window is... Let's play around with this for a second. If you're on audio, you're like, dude, shut up and, move on. What's funny is I've been experimenting recently listening to a ton of new podcasts, and it's interesting how often I give them 3 minutes and go, and it's terrified me about mornings like this where I start this badly and just kind of fiddling around and wondering what I'm talking about, and then you probably, if you're a new-time listener, you're gone by now. So let's dig into this. We like to start off our broadcast with something we call the NBA 5. Big news out of LA is Blake Griffin has supposedly changed up his jump shot. He's improved it greatly over the last few years, but now it's getting even better, supposedly. That makes things pretty interesting. I think Blake has moved himself into a top 5, top 3 player in the NBA. And it'll be curious to see where NBA rank puts him in the process. But I think he might be the third best player in the NBA at this point. And that's going to carry the Clippers, and he has made huge strides in who he is as a player. Interesting news out of Sacramento. They made their D-League hire yesterday, and they hired the head coach of Grinnell. That's the school where Jack Taylor scored 138 points last year. And last year, you remember, the Rio Grande Vipers, Daryl Morey and his crew decided to see if they shot 53s a game, what happened, and it was successful. This is all part of the analytics movement. This is also, though, where the NBA game may change a little bit, and maybe in the wrong direction, frankly, or at least just in a direction we're not comfortable with, where suddenly you're shooting 53s, 43s a game. But that's what the head coach of Grinnell is, that up and down crazy team, scored 100 and whatever points a game, played almost no defense, just got their shots up. And maybe until other teams start doing it as well, then that system does work. The Rio Grande Vipers were very good last year. Cool internet little thing, if you look around, Nick Stoyaskis of Sacramento taking a picture of the cash he got for per diem. Not any of the check he gets for a few million coming up here, but the cash he got for per diem. Cool little internet shot. Jimmer had another fairly good day. He's 3 for 3 on good offensive games, 13 points. And I said earlier with New Orleans, Austin Rivers has been terrible. And so Jimmer's got a real chance on this team. Monty Williams did criticize him after the game for not playing enough defense, but that's the third straight game Jimmer's been in double figures. New Orleans might turn out to be a nice mix, and may turn out to be a nice mix as anything because, as I said, Austin Rivers is the position he's battling for as the fourth guard with Holiday, Gordon, Evans, and Jimmer, and frankly, he may beat out Rivers for that 4th spot. Nerlens Noel, we finally have seen him. 5 of 13 from the floor, 10 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 blocks. The only concern, Noel 0 of 4 from the free throw line. Marcus Smart, after an 0 for 8 debut, had 11 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. He went 4 of 8, 2 of 4 from 3. Jabari makes his debut yesterday. A little mixed bag for Jabari. He went 6 of 15 from the field. You look at it, he gets 14 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists in 32 minutes. He leads the comeback, and it all looks really good until this was the concern coming out of him in the draft, is that he started as the power forward. They played him predominantly at the 4, despite a quote from him saying that he played mostly the 3 in camp coming in. So weird that Jason Kidd would flip him around and play him as the 4 along the way, but he ends up with 14 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. However, in the first 12 minutes, or in the first quarter, he goes 0 for 3 with a turnover and a free throw, and Zach Randolph beats him up a little bit. And that's going to be the tough one for Jabari, is trying to match up there. Mitch McGrady, the rookie out of Michigan, played 36 minutes for Oklahoma City as Russell and Kevin hardly played. And without Russell and Kevin, Jeremy Lamb had to carry the load, and he went 1 of 14 shooting. Thabo Sefolosha replacement is either Jeremy Lamb or Anthony Morrow or somebody on that roster, Reggie Jackson. And it will be interesting to see what happens with Oklahoma City in that regard as they try to figure out what their replacement on that is. Everyone. All right, that is your NBA 5. Let's dig into the Utah Jazz. They get ready for preseason game number 2. Little cute Dante Exum thing saying, hey, call 801-237-38 to ask us a question. That's 801-237-38. Fun day here yesterday. We got in. We're in Portland, as you have this beautiful view of the... It's not really beautiful because it's reflecting off the window a little bit, but you get the boats down below and the river, and you can see the commute starting here in the morning. Rather than looking at my ugly face, I figured that's probably better this morning. For those of you watching on YouTube or on Google Plus. And it was fun yesterday. We got here early enough, and the guys were just kind of around. You saw some of my Instagram videos. Rodney Hood, who had ridden a bike very few times in his life. They have little bikes out here that you're welcome to take around town. So Rodney jumped on a bike and was biking around the circle. Bost. It's Bost, I think, rather than Boast. I got to check, actually, on that. Was flying. He'd had some time on a bike. We were having some fun with that. They were joking, trying to put favors on it, but he was too big. That group all went out. Actually, Rodney then I think, went on a bike ride on his own for a while, because when he came back, suddenly the guys were gone for dinner, and he had to go try to find them. Jack Cooley came out of the hotel, and there was a guy wearing a Jack Cooley jersey, which Jack just thought was the best thing ever. He's a great story. I mean, he was the 33rd ranked power forward in the country out of high school. But think about that for a second. 33rd ranked power forward. That's not a highly sought after recruit, right? He goes to Notre Dame. His freshman and sophomore years, I think he averages about 2 points, 2 rebounds in each of those years. Finally, his junior year, he kicks in a little bit. And then senior year, and now all of a sudden he's in an NBA training camp. He just got engaged. He's really just, he's at the pinnacle of life right now. He's 23 years old, happy as get out. He's got the woman he's going to spend the rest of his life with. He's experiencing NBA basketball at a level I'm not sure he ever thought he was going to, and he's playing fairly well. So it's nice to see for Jack. I think he could surprise and end up on this roster, or more likely he could end up with the Idaho Stampede. But that's progress for him, and someone might just decide that and as he refines his skills, he may just find himself getting some NBA minutes before it's all said and done for him, as he expands his range a little bit with that jump shot. He's just such a good physical player. He plays the game correctly. So it's a good story in Jack Cooley. He and Gordon went out for dinner, I think it was. I wasn't certain on that. Jeremy was in there somewhere with that crew, I think. So it's just guys were hanging out. Nice to see everybody having a nice time together as they get ready for exhibition game number 2. Randy Rigby was on 1280 The Zone and 97.5 yesterday and made a comment that created a little bit of an internet stir. It was accurate, and also I think he made the comment. The exact quote was that he went a little rogue, talking about Alec Burks. So the first point I would make is the word rogue was in the question. This is one of those times where I think you have to be a little careful with how big a deal you want to make out of just because the word rogue was in the question. But I also think it's something we've talked about here on this tip-off broadcast for much of the last month, that this is an opportunity for Alec to be great. And Quinn is embracing Alec, but it's going to be a balancing act. And the most interesting player for me to watch this year is going to be Alec, in his ability to play and have success in a system that gives him great freedom. So there's certain systems that don't give him great freedom, and he's probably not going to have that success. This system is giving him great freedom, but there are things Quinn wants. Quinn wants that ball you either catch, and he actually wants you to go and then catch. You either pass or you shoot, but you don't dribble and then look around to discover what's going on and then move the basketball. And that's something that Alec has always done. Alec puts the ball down on the floor prior to doing anything else. He does not see the play often before it happens. Even talking about his drives and some of those things, now I just make it up as I go along, and it's incredible gift. And his ability to get to the basket is just fabulous. And Quinn is embracing the skill set that makes Alec so exciting. But we're really, in some ways, still with Alec back to where he was when he was drafted. There were three major questions about Alec when he came out of Colorado that allowed him to get to 12 on the board. One was whether or not he could play off the ball. Okay? And so what that means is, one, defensively, he has a tendency to relax badly when he's not guarding the ball. That's still true. Ron Boone talks about a lot on the broadcast, as he always has to make two motions. He's not in a defensive ready position when the ball comes. So when his guy gets the ball and makes his one move, Alec has to go down into a stance and then move, and then he gets beat. So that's still, that's experience, and he's definitely, Quinn's been very pleased with the efforts Alec has made defensively so far this year, and also playing off the ball offensively. Well, what does that mean? A lot of that is playing off your teammates, understanding what your teammates are doing, but also being ready when you don't get the ball, as you get the ball, so that you're prepared off the ball to make your move and do your thing. And that's a little bit of what we're seeing here, is that he has this tendency to put the rock on the floor, and then make his decision along the way. The other question with Alec, despite his ability to pass, and he had I think he averaged 3 or 4 assists, and we've all seen it, is his ability to play with teammates, to play in a manner that his teammates can profit off of. And a little bit of the thought here is, if he doesn't know where he's going, how can his teammates react? And this was very much, I think, the issue over the last few years that precluded him from getting kind of unmitigated playing time, and why he played on the second unit with guys where, if he's just going and doing his thing and not including them, it's maybe not as big a deal. And so this is still something that, he's got to be able to play in a fashion, as Quinn's, this whole system that Quinn is putting in is about reading and reacting. And if you're reading and you're not sure what you're reading, then it makes it very difficult to play. And I think that's something that Alec's got to work on. And the third thing is his jumper, and he's done a great job of getting that better. He's got a chance. I said this on the broadcast the other night. He has a chance to be great this year. He's being given every opportunity to be great. What we're going to find out is whether he's good enough. And good enough is not the ability to finish at the rim, the ability to make a jumper, the ability to swoop in and do his incredible finishes. The ability is to play the whole game. And this is going to be a very big year for Alec, because it's time. He's been in the league long enough. This will be his 4th season. This is who he is as a player at this point. He's had every experience there is to be had, and he's had the door opened wide to him to be able to become that player. And so he's been brilliant in training camp, and he's been the best player in the team during training camp probably. And now then he got back into a game setting and he reverted. Okay, not a big deal, but worth noting. Disappointing? No, probably not even that strong. Um, Worth keeping an eye on? Discouraging? Sure. That you still have a lot of work to do. He's got to stay focused on what he's doing. Kind of discouraging in that sense, but really, overall, I think you have to take it that it's a very, this is a huge opportunity for a guy with a tremendous skill set who's still a work in progress. And what happened the other night, I think, is a sign of that he's a work in progress. Now, the flip side of this story on night number one, and we'll see how this lasts, is that Ennis was the exact opposite. Here's Ennis, who the book on Ennis from the very beginning has been incredible body, great skills, fabulous touch, limited basketball knowledge, low basketball IQ because of very smart, but low basketball IQ because of limited experience, not understanding the natural instincts of the game. Oftentimes in the past you'd have plays that are set up and you go set the pick on the wrong side because it's just not natural to him to understand how the play is supposed to be happening. And all of a sudden, yesterday or in game number one of the preseason, he was the exact opposite. He got most things right. He did most of the little things right if you watch that game. He executed the offense really well. Probably the best execution night and little thing night out of Ennis Cantor, replacing when Derek rolled, defensively being in the right spot on the channel. All of the things, probably the best night we've ever seen out of Ennis Cantor. So it goes both ways, right? And it will be interesting to see over some time how this plays out and materializes. But it's only one preseason game. I wouldn't get too overwhelmed by it or excited. And I'm sure we'll see a different Portland Trailblazer team early. The Jazz starters outscoring Portland by 16 points in those along the way. A few interesting notes also from that Randy Rigby interview. Gordon Hayward and Derek Favors. He mentioned Gordon Hayward, but both Gordon and Derek's lockers are now in the middle. The coaches and the players have really set that locker up. Gordon and Derek right in the middle. Ennis is off to the left of Derek. Trey, I believe, is off to the right of Gordon. So that's kind of the middle of that locker room, trying to put the guys in there, put them stage front and center, let them have the leadership. There are no Al Jefferson, Paul Millsap, Richard Jefferson, Marvin Williams anymore. There's no one else to look around the locker room and let them take their role in the process. So these guys have got to be the guys who become the leaders of this team, and that's the way it's set and ready for them. Who's it a big night for tonight? I think I'm not going to go too big on the Alec front. I guess if he'll be fine, so I would not go too big there. I think if Carrick Felix and Ian Clark do not go again, then I think it's another big night for Dante Jones and Toure Murray to have the opportunity to play those wing moments along the way and show that they can do things. Toure played pretty well in game number one, probably played better in game number one than he has for much of camp. Dante is Dante Jones. I mean, he's just a veteran, solid player there. And I don't know if Ian and Carrick would go yet. I'd be surprised. The Jazz really pretty much got yesterday off from these guys. Quinn does an interesting job here, by the way, as we watch Quinn, with driving them incredibly hard and then really feeling at the appropriate time that he's driven them as hard as he probably can and giving them a break. It goes to a great quote by Doc Rivers last year. I can teach them with tired legs. I cannot teach them without their minds, with tired minds. And I think Quinn has done a really nice job of reading that. And also, it's probably very, very – oh, this is awesome. I hope you guys get to see this. I don't know if you're going to be able to. The morning crew team practicing out on the river this morning here. Let's see if you can get that. You guys get it? I think you can see that crew. It looks probably just like a speck as those birds go by, but there it is. The morning crew with their boat coach next to them on the boat coming down the river. Kind of awesome. I love Portland. Love the Pacific Northwest. Such a unique part of America. By the way, here's an interesting debate on the bus. Most beautiful spot in America. I went the San Juan Islands in the Pacific Northwest up on the Washington-Canadian border. Most beautiful spot in America. Where are you going with that? Anyone? Here comes the crew boat back into your picture. Feel free. It's an interesting question. Probably somewhere up in Maine, maybe? I don't know. I like water, probably. Some of the mountains of Utah, certainly. Some of southern Utah probably can get into that discussion a little bit. It's interesting. Smoky Mountains in North Carolina, when we went on our crazy general RV trip, was right up there. I know, this is a tangent. I was talking about Quinn beforehand. I remember that. The coffee's kicked in. I'm alive and alert and awake and enthusiastic. All right, let's go to your questions. See what we got today. From Forrest Scott. Good morning, Forrest. Do you like it when fans talk to you in person, like at games and such? And all right, so let's start with that. Let's see. So do I like? Yes, I enjoy that. Time and place is always an issue, though, right? So most people are pretty good about reading that. And also day, like what you can't read. Certain days are running very, very smoothly before broadcast, and I'd love to say hi to everybody. And there's other days where I think we're about to make a ass of ourselves in the air if we don't get some things taken care of, and I'm pretty stressed. So, but I try to be very, I try. I would hope it comes across that I enjoy, interacting. Does Rudy showing at the Portland game mean much more for the regular season as an actual NBA player, and he seemed to hold his own? What do you think? Oh, I don't think he had a very good game, but I could be wrong. I didn't think he played particularly well, actually. Rudy got to figure out a way offensively for Rudy to stay on the floor. I think this is an interesting 2 weeks for Rudy. There's a chance our expectations have exceeded reality. Summer League performance, he was dominant. But he's also 7-2. He should dominate Summer League. FIBA World Cup, incredible game against Marc Gasol and Pau Gasol, and he was pretty good the rest of the time. And so there's huge excitement for him. But this is real. And he's still got a long way to go. But I like him. The length is not going away. There's a chance he's a real defense player. I said it yesterday. I think there's a chance he can be Tyson Chandler, DeAndre Jordan light. But I didn't think. I'll have to go back and watch it. I didn't think his first game was very good. Maybe I missed it. I could be wrong on that one. I didn't think so. Does Alec have a permission to break a play to do his thing if he sees an opening? The plays, does he have a green light? So you sell it's not that's not how the plays work. I saw Purple and Blue did a neat little thing on kind of trying to diagram play, but it's not really actually how these plays work. They're all reads. So everything is, if he has an opening, that's actually not breaking the play. That's taking the openings that's there, and then everybody has to read off of it. So if he's doing it in the correct timing and working it so that everybody can react to it correctly, then that's not per se breaking play. That's actually probably doing exactly what you're supposed to do in the process. So I think that's, make sure we have the clarity on that a little bit. Will Ennis shoot from the top of the arc as the season goes on? He's actually been pretty good at that in practice. So yes, I think you'll see. And there's a real value, by the way, to what they refer to as the high quadrant three over the corner three. If you can get a big guy, Boris Diaw, to shoot from the top, think about what it does from the defensive standpoint. If you're shooting from the corner, you can rotate a wing out and do some things where you can almost leave your big down below. But if you're shooting from the top, it really makes it very, very difficult for the defense to be able to get to all of the spots and really pulls a big out of the middle. For rebounding purposes, it's difficult. Rim protection is difficult. So there's a huge value if Ennis can do that. Is it fair to say Quinn's system ideally would be similar to the systems run by Rick Adelman, Sacramento, George Karl, and Denver? I don't think so at all, actually. No. Adelman runs a system that's very similar to what Jerry ran. George Karl ran pretty unstructured. Phil ran the triangle. So no, I don't think so. But maybe you're thinking of something more differently than I am, and so I'm not understanding your question. But my initial reaction to that, Ryan, is no. I don't think it's fair to say that Quinn's system ideally would be similar to systems run by Adelman in Sacramento, George Karl in Denver, and Phil Jackson in Los Angeles. I think it would be more Turo Messina in Europe. It's a very European tile system. Do you see Rudy getting PT even if all he can be is a Mark Eaton type player? Well, remember though that the rules were different then, so that you could go put Mark Eaton outside the three-point line as a non-offensive player, and defensive player had to come with him in a way that they don't have to come with you anymore. So there's the defensive rules are different, and so the Mark Eaton type player is going to be harder for. Rudy's got to be able to be a little bit better offensively than Mark ever was to stay on the floor. It's, if you go look, I don't know if I can pull it up, but Roy Hibbert is, as fabulous as he is defensively, is a real problem for Indiana offensively. You give him post ups, you give these things. He's not very good, and he clogs the lane and he can't get out of there, and it causes all sorts of difficulties for spacing and all sorts of other aspects. And so that's kind of what we're talking about here, is that you got to avoid that circumstance. If you look back at the numbers last year when Rudy was on the front, different system, so some of the numbers don't maybe correlate, but when Rudy was on the floor last year, we really couldn't score at all. And that's going to be something we just have to keep an eye on. These are not, we got to be careful here as you're listening to this. Let's be careful that discussion points of development are not criticisms. I'm a huge fan of Alec. I mean, I always have been. I love his skill set. But these are the issues that he has to develop better to be a better player. And this, we've talked about that incessantly, about his inability in the past to be able to do things in which help the team win. And, he did a better job of that the other day. It's part of his development. So Rudy's got incredible skills, and his development is going to be figuring out a way to be good enough offensively to stay on the floor. These are just, I'm trying to share with you what the aspects are in a player's development as we're at this developmental stage of where they have to go. Hopefully then you can understand nights when they do and don't get time, and you can also look at times in which they're very successful in what they're developing. I was trying to pull up the Roy Hibbert numbers. Doesn't seem like it's happening. Let's go to Courtney Gardner. How many players do you think will be in the rotation? If more than 8, do you think it'll be a bad thing? Oh, whoa. Okay, first of all, no. I think it'll be 9 or 10. Lots of questions here. No problem. And none of which I can answer in the after one preseason game. But the rotation, barring something really strange happening, is going to be the starting 5 of Trey, Alec, Gordon, Derek, and Ennis. And so to that point, when we're talking about Alec having one night, he's got 30 to fix it, 50 to fix it. I mean, if you're talking about the extension between now and maybe there's some more urgency, but we got time to work on these things. We got time for Rudy. Your bigs, then you're going to come off the bench with Dante Exum, Rodney Hood, Trevor Booker, and Rudy Gobert. The bench could be pretty weak. The bench could struggle a little bit this year. Some of those players are going to have some tough days. Steve Novak comes off as the 10th guy, and that's really your rotation. I have, I don't know who our most improved rookie of the year, sixth man defense. I appreciate the passion and love the question, but it's more than I think I can answer after one preseason game and 1 week of training camp, 4 weeks of training camp if you count the open gym. I'm not sure I'm willing to go there. You said recently that Trey was playing very well in camp. Can you expand on that? What areas has he improved since his rookie year? Where does he still need to focus to continue his growth? I mean, I really just think he's battling. I think more than anything else, he's battling and trying to do things, in particular on the defensive end, would be where I think Trey, he's tried to add a little hopper in the lane to improve that. He's trying to do some things. So I think I really think that that's probably the biggest Trey is just an awesome effort to be better right now, which most of the guys have, right? Like, again, I get nervous here when we have these when we have these conversations and we wonder, and I start talking about them, he said, too often what happens to me, I think, is I say, I make the comment that someone is working hard, and too often people interpret that others aren't. So this is difficult sometimes to hold these conversations. All right, Clint Peterson is doing a nice job at purple and blue. Loving the horn sets. So many options. Are the fellas picking up the basics? I mean, it's all read and react. So it's very, they've got to read these various things. Horns, I noticed on your piece, Clint, one note for you. I don't think you have things quite in the correct order. The initial push offensively is the goal is to attack at the 45. And see if you can get an early drag screen, see if you can get an attack at the 45 angle coming in on the initial push. And then as those things don't develop, you run into an early horn set in that order of things. And then the beauty of the horn set, as I think you tried to show in your post on purple and blue, is that you can have action going on both sides of the floor at the same time, which makes it very difficult to defend. But you also watch a lot of key things. If you're watching at home, an interesting one I think for you to watch is keep track of how many times the ball goes to the second side of the floor and really goes to the third side of the floor. That sounds funny, but let's say you start right, go to the left, and come back right. That's the offense is working when it gets to the third side of the floor. The other one I think is very interesting to watch early in the year is how often the offense who is initiating the first pick and roll. Is it Trey, is it Alec, or is it Gordon? And I think that's going to be an interesting one to watch. From Stephanie Park, I don't recall starting the season with 15. Will they do that this year? We could start with 15 and have the 15th be in Idaho, right? That would be our 15th spot, could then be assigned to Idaho. I think our 15th spot will be 14th and 15th spots will be heavy rotations. So I think we could have, I don't know the number, but say we carry 15 and have 22 guys on the roster by the season's end. I think you'll see a lot of movement in those final spots throughout the year, very similar to how we did at the end of last year. I think that would be what I would suspect. All right, that is today's edition of Tip Off on a beautiful Portland morning. I hope you enjoyed the view. I think this should be our new road thing. No one needs to look at me in my hotel room. We should just do this. Whatever my view out of the hotel room is, I'll try to set up Tip Off so that you can look out of it. And in New York, you'll just see a big, huge building. All right, this is probably the best view I have of any hotel. So this would be a funny little gig, except for the fact that it's, in some days will be terrible. Thanks very much for tuning in. Appreciate your passion. Talk to you soon.